This is a real-time Formula One pit stop. Just watch. 2.5 seconds. 4 tires changed. Car setup adjusted. Fuel and momentum recalibrated. And it's already flying back into the race. You blink and it's over. Bah! How can more than 20 people, precision tools, and a moving machine coordinate with 0 verbal commands, no second chances, and stakes that are literally measured in milliseconds? It almost looks fake, like CGI, but this isn't visual effects. This is reality stripped down to the rawest form of teamwork, speed, and engineering perfection. And the entire thing operates like clockwork, under the roar of engines and the weight of split-second decisions. From the tire guns that spin faster than a jet engine, turbine, to the invisible signals exchanged without a single word, to the fail-safe systems designed to catch even a 0.1 second mistake. There's no room for hesitation, no room for error. Every roll is memorized, every movement rehearsed. You're about to see every single millisecond of it broken down and magnified. And while fans fixate on the roar of the engines or the thrill of some of the biggest gains and losses happen right here in the pits, because behind that 2.5 second miracle is a machine built by humans, a system so flawless it seems inhuman. The tires are soft, sticky, and tuned for maximum grip, but that comes at the cost of longevity. Let's slow it all down. Pit stops aren't just a necessity in Formula One, they're a weapon. In a sport where races are often decided by less than a second, every move counts. But why even stop? Formula One cars can't make it through a full race on a single set of tires. Their rubber degrades quickly on purpose. Others, lost because of a hesitation, a miscommunication, or a single loose wheel. So drivers have to pit, not just to stay competitive but to survive the race. In that time, you couldn't even take a sip of water. But here's the twist. Teams choose when to stop. And that decision is a game of high-speed chess. Pit too early, you risk wearing out your second set too soon. Pit too late, you might lose track position forever. Tire strategy is so crucial, it's built into race simulations. It drops to 60, and for cars that normally scream down straights at over 330 kilometers per hour, that's like slamming the brakes on a bullet train. Teams run hundreds of virtual scenarios before the race begins, calculating every possible variable: weather, traffic, tire degradation, and fuel burn. A perfect pit window might be just 2 or 3 laps long. Miss it, and your race could unravel. The moment the car crosses the pit entry line, the driver hits it. Instantly, the car's throttle is capped, locking its speed to the pit lane limit. Miss it by a fraction, and you get a time penalty. There's no time for communication, no second tries. Brake too early, and you've just handed your rivals a free advantage. That's why pit strategy is one of the most critical and underrated aspects of the race. The goal: align the front tires perfectly under it. No guessing, no corrections. In fact, some races have been won entirely because of a well-timed stop. The fastest pit stop ever recorded, just 1.82 seconds. If the car is even slightly off-center to far left or right, the tire changers can't reach properly. If the driver overshoots their mark by just a foot, it can throw off the entire sequence. So when a car pulls into pit lane, it's not just about tires, it's about timing, tactics, and shaving off every millisecond possible. The faster you stop, the sooner you're back out. And sometimes, that sliver of time, is the difference between first and fifth. The pit stop doesn't begin when the car stops. It begins before the driver even hits the pit lane. Every Formula One circuit has a strict speed limit in the pit area, usually 80 kilometers per hour. Though in tighter tracks like Monaco, drivers must time there, braking perfectly, cutting speed at the very last moment without overshooting the line. To help, there's a special pit limiter button on the steering wheel. But now comes the hardest part: parking. Every pit crew member is positioned down to the centimeter. To guide them, teams use a mechanical arm, a lollipop with an arrow that lines up with the car's nose. It sounds simple, but the driver is doing all of this while still processing race data, strategizing their next move, and mentally preparing for the restart. All of this has to happen in seconds. What looks like a simple coast into the garage is actually one of the most precise entries in all of sports, requiring nerves of steel, perfect coordination, and zero margin for error. The moment the car halts within inches of its target, 2 crew members launch into action: the front jack and rear jack operators. The front jack operator, arguably the bravest person on the team, their job is to lift the entire front end with one clean motion using a massive T-shaped jack pole. It's a split-second ballet. Catch the nose, absorb the car's momentum, and heave the front end skyward. They stand directly in front of a car that's barreling toward them at speed. No hesitation, no flinch, just precision. Their job: stop the car from swaying, bouncing, or rocking side to side. Even a slight tilt could delay the entire process. As soon as the rear jack hits the diffuser, they thrust upwards, lifting the back end into the air. A delay of even 0.2 seconds at the rear can jam up the tire crew. A slight angle can prevent a new tire from locking on, because once the tires are changed, the car needs to drop and launch without delay. If a jack gets stuck or is dropped too early, the pit stop becomes a disaster. Once the car is airborne, the real frenzy begins. Red Bulls might be feather-light carbon fiber with reinforced titanium joints. Ferraris might use double-piston hydraulics with sensor feedback loops. Some teams even experiment with automated jack lifts triggered by car sensors, though that tech brings its own risks. The gunner is already tracking the wheel's movement, aiming the gun like a sniper, and here's where Formula One differs from your neighborhood garage. F1 tires are held by a single central nut, engineered to microscopic tolerances. Miss the angle by even a degree, the nut jams. One crew member prepares to rip the old tire away. The other is gripping the new one like a shot-put athlete. A mistimed lift can break suspension components worth hundreds of thousands. Right behind them, the rear jack operator mirrors the motion, waiting just a heartbeat longer to avoid collision. White means loosen. The moment the nut comes off and the trigger is released, it auto-switches to tightening mode, flashing blue. Once the nut is torqued back on, it turns green. In 2021, Bottas wheel nut fused to the axle. In 2013, Weber's tire flew off mid-pit, injuring a cameraman. In an instant, the car is airborne. Not gently, not gradually. It's yanked into the air with violence. It's custom machined from aerospace-grade titanium or steel alloy, designed to survive massive torque loads without cracking or rounding off. It threads in with the perfect balance, tight enough to hold a 900-kilogram car through 5G turns, loose enough to release in half a second. It's easy to look at a pit stop and think, that's just practice. Muscle memory? Once their tire is locked in, they press it. Red Bulls are legendary, compact, light, built from carbon Mercedes uses a system where the trigger sends data to a server in real-time, logging torque, spin speed, and pressure. So do the jack operators. Only when every single station is signaled ready does the system even consider sending the car. But that force needs control, because while the jacks lift, two stabilizers move in. Pneumatic torque wrenches, custom built for one thing: raw speed. They spin it up to 15,000 RPM. That's 5 times faster than a dentist's drill. They're preheated in electric blankets to optimal temperature, and each one has a specific pressure and compound tuned for that exact stint. And here's where things get really tense. All of this lifting, front, rear, stabilization, it's also dangerous. One misstep and a crew member could be crushed. That's why jack operators wear reinforced boots and gear with fireproof padding, even though they're only in action for seconds. Meanwhile, the jacks themselves are technological marvels. And don't forget, the jacks must be instantly released. This is the heartbeat of the pit stop. No lift, no tire change, no margin for error, and it's all done faster than you can tie your shoes. Each tire is handled by a 3-person micro team, one in front, one behind, and one in the middle with the weapon of choice, the wheel gun. That means 12 people, 4 tires, and every one of them must act like they share a single brain. Before the car even stops, the tire crew is locked in. And timing? It's terrifying. The moment the car settles, the gunner strikes. Their goal: unscrew the central lock nut at lightning speed. These aren't 5 lug nut wheels. The guns, absolute beasts. And every one of them has a color-coded lead ring. But speed means nothing without security. That's why each gunner has a confirmation button. Meanwhile, the new tires aren't just grabbed randomly. This choreography is done in under 2 seconds. The crew doesn't just change tires. They dance on the edge of disaster, because one wrong move means a car leaves with a loose wheel at 300 kilometers per hour, and it's happened. This isn't just a team sport. It's team surgery with power tools. But beneath the surface, there's something far more extraordinary: engineering pushed to its limits. Let's start with that central lock nut. It looks like a simple bolt, but it's not. Now multiply that by 4. 4 nuts. 4 high-stakes removals for perfect reattachments every time. And the guns? Each team has their own spec. Why? Because if a single wheel isn't torqued to spec, the car could fail at 300 kilometers per hour. In an F1, there are no second chances. So the guns are fitted with torque limiters, air regulators, and redundant kill switches. Every millimeter is optimized not just for speed, but for engineers track temperature, tread wear, compound performance all in real time, down to the 10th of a degree. Because in a 23-race season, you're doing this hundreds of times. If anything, it's even slightly out of sync. If the temperature drops too low, or the car rocks from side to side, the new tire might not slide on. In F1, those extra seconds don't exist. Perfection is the baseline. Everything's been thought of. Every tool, nut, and component isn't just functional, it's a product of decades of precision evolution. The wheel hub itself is also custom built, with ceramic coatings that reduce friction between the nut and axle. Then there's the tire. Each one is marked, logged, and prepped before the race. But behind that single bulb is a maze of sensors, logic gates, and safety checks. During a stop, there's a brief window just seconds when the hub, brake assembly, and suspension are perfectly aligned, and when you only have 2.5 seconds, you don't have time to troubleshoot. Other racing series might allow 10 or 15 seconds per stop. NASCAR uses 5 lug nuts per tire, and locked. The jacks are still engaged, and every crew member is clear of the vehicle. This isn't just a tire change, it's a mechanical symphony. In Formula One, the difference between fast and flawless, if even one station fails to report and the light stays red, is engineering. At this point, the tires are on, the guns have fired, the jacks are holding steady, but the car still isn't moving because of one thing. The red light, their job, adjust the car's aerodynamics too much, and you lose speed on the straights. Right in front of the drivers, visor is a glowing signal. Red means stop, green means go. Simple in theory. Before the light turns green, every single subsystem must confirm. All 4 wheels are each gunner and jack operator hits a confirmation button. That signal routes through a central system that double-checks everything in milliseconds. And that's on purpose. Sending a car too early is one of the most dangerous mistakes in F1. It can lead to loose wheels, penalties, or worst of all, injuries. Pit lanes are crowded. A single miscommunication could send a 900 kg missile into another crew's box. That's why some teams even use AI-assisted systems that monitor crew position and wheel torque, data in real time, and extra layer of insurance before that green light comes on. And yet, even with all that tech, the human element remains. The final go command doesn't come from a machine. The nose of the car slams back to the ground. The instant it turns green, they punch the throttle. Every second counts, because another car might be approaching fast from behind. Half a second later, the rear jack follows, dropping the car flat. Perched just behind the pit box, they're watching it all. The crew, the light, the track. Only when the chief is satisfied that every part is complete and that there is no traffic in the lane do they press the final override button. Only then does the light flick green. Or they might hold it for just a beat longer to avoid unsafe release penalties. And in that moment, the calm vanishes. The car drops, the driver guns it, and the pit box erupts in controlled chaos. Sometimes, a pit stop isn't just about tires, it's about tweaking the very physics of the car. In the middle of a 2-second tire swap, you might also see 2 crew members rush to the front wing. The front wing determines how much downforce the car has, how much it's pushed into the track. Too little, and you slide through corners. But when the wheel gun hit the front right tire, it didn't budge. The nut was stuck. Not cross-threaded, not slow-welded to the axle by the gun's insane torque. They couldn't remove it, not even in the garage. Bottas had to retire on the spot. So, if conditions change like rise in track temps, tire wear, fuel load, or a shift in balance, day driver might call for a wing tweak. To do it, mechanics use a preset torque driver. It looks like a screwdriver, but it's tuned to exact resistance. They insert it into a hole on each side of the wing and rotate sometimes just a few turns in either direction. That tiny motion can alter the car's balance in a big way. It's like tuning a fighter jet mid-flight with a stopwatch ticking. The entire process takes about 1 second, and it must happen without interfering with the rest of the stop. Because even when modifying the car's aerodynamics, there's still no margin for delay. Everything is done. The wheels are on, the adjustments are made, the confirmations are in. The red light is still holding, then boom, the green light flashes. In that exact moment, the front jack operator pulls a release lever. The driver doesn't wait. They're already watching for that signal. The car launches like a rocket, spinning the rear tires as it shoots down pit lane. And even here, strategy matters. The team might release the car into a gap in traffic, helping the driver gain track position. From the outside, it looks like the pit crew just let the car go. But behind that launch is a layered system of timing, safety, and trust. In under 3 seconds, a car stops, transforms, and disappears again. That's not just speed. For all its perfection, the F1 pit stop is always on the edge of failure. When everything goes right, it's breathtaking. But when it doesn't, it's chaos. In 2021, Valtteri Bottas pulled into the pit's routine stop. Nothing unusual. In 2013, Mark Webber left the pit box, and a rear tire wasn't attached. It flew off the car and struck a cameraman. The crew got fined, the race was overshadowed, and it's not just equipment. Sometimes, it's human. A missed signal, a mistimed jack, a tire fitted to the wrong side of the car. If the tire won't come off, in 2020, a Haas pit stop mistake left both drivers with incorrectly installed wheel DNF. The margins are so thin that milliseconds make the difference between success and headlines for the wrong reason. Teams spend hours every week rehearsing pit stops, not just for speed but to train for disaster. What happens if the gun jams? If the jack fails? Every motion is drilled. Every emergency has a plan. But even with all that training, the pit stop is still one of the riskiest, most unpredictable elements in a race. Because when 20 people, high-powered tools, and a moving car converge in a space smaller than a bedroom, anything can happen. And if you get it wrong, the world sees it in slow-motion replay. A Formula One pit stop lasts just 2.5 seconds. It's one of the most complex maneuvers in all of sports. Everyone has a role. Everyone depends on everyone else. There's no margin for ego, no space for hesitation. But inside those seconds lives everything we admire about elite performance: speed, precision, pressure, and trust. It's a moment where dozens of variables align: technology, teamwork, strategy, and courage. Crew members rehearse every move like choreography, knowing that one mistake means heartbreak, and it's invisible to most viewers. On TV, it's a blur, but up close, this is the pinnacle of coordination. It's what happens when humans and machines operate in perfect sync. Engineers obsess over millimeters. Drivers train their instincts to within a breath. In a world chasing perfection, the F1 pit stop delivers it, in a heartbeat. So next time you watch a race, don't blink when they hit the pits. That's where the magic really happens.